for all my screw ups with sound on my computer. There's going to have to be more investigations of these things. And I will figure out what the deal is eventually. But anyway, I'll wait a couple seconds until some people might jump on if they trust me to be audible again. Don't blame them if they don't. How could I? But anyway, yeah, that was a failed experiment with my computer, unfortunately. So now I'm going to have to use the phone and figure some other. Good. Thanks, Stray Bull. You do hear me. Awesome. I thought I could do it on the computer and do a different kind of live stream and have a little bit better quality than the phone, but that did not work out. So I am going to go back and read some of these, and I will go back and give the citation. The article, it's from verywellmind.com. What is a Cult? 10 Warning Signs by Amy Morin from last November 13th, 2023. And the signs of a cult: number one, absolute authoritarianism without accountability. Number two, zero tolerance for criticism or questions. Number three, lack of meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget. And number four, unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil conspiracies and persecutions. And that is the last thing that we got to here. So the fears about the outside world, the evil conspiracies that they fear, that's a tool to have control. That's a tool to monopolize the information that anybody in the cult can receive. And so when you get them worried about the outside world, and I'm looking at this to make sure I don't add other stuff. Yeah. So here's another thing. Part of this fear of the outside world involves creating a new vocabulary for insiders compared to outsiders. And so what they do in most cults, and it's not listed on this list, is that you get this kind of cult speak going where you have different, you make up words for normal everyday words. You make up a cult version of the word. And you then train your members to use the cult version of the word. And now, I don't want to, in any way, I'm going to use an example here, but sorry, I got 20 things that I'm juggling around here. Landmark in no way is on the level of Scientology from anything that I have seen. But I did one weekend of Landmark, their intro course, whatever. And I noticed that right away that they were messing with the language. They were using sales words in exchange for some other words, like enroll. Like talking you into something was enrolling you in that idea. And then they would use the word enroll, and then later on, they would use the word enroll to enroll you. So that's like one of the things that Landmark did with words. So basically, you create a we are the insiders and we need to watch out for the outsiders. That's a typical cult thing. So there are different levels of that, of course, of how much fear there is around the outside world. But that's a huge thing. Now, another number 5, a belief that former followers are always wrong for leaving, and there's never a legitimate reason for anyone to leave. That's a sign of a cult, right? Leaving is the worst thing that you can do. And it's not just kind of like, oh, well, that's really a shame. We'd like to listening while you hook up new stereo stuff. Cool. Well, I'm glad you weren't listening before when there was nothing to listen to, because that would have made hooking up stereo stuff really confusing. So anyway, sorry about the movement. I am just looking for my gimbal so I can do a little tripod action and maybe make things look a little better. And we'll see if that works. Sorry for the darkness, the gloom, but there's no way I'm turning on lights and showing you how messy my apartment is at the current moment. We're not doing that today. Hell no. So, of course, it was right there on my messy desk right next to me. What a shock. Okay, so you might have to take a little ride on the gimbal now. I'm going to set it up, and I should have done that first, but I didn't plan on using the phone whatsoever. So anyway, yeah, there's a big thing about anybody who leaves the cult is, no, I don't have any porn magazines laying around, Richie. I'm old school. I got an imagination, not like these young kids. No requirements for those things, and plus I'm too. Well, sorry. Just messed that up again too. I am having a what they would call a Mercury retrograde kind of day. For anybody who knows astrology, it's like trying to get this stuff going while I am in motion is not the best idea, but that's what we're doing. So anyway, abusive members and abuse of members. That's another aspect. Sorry, it's gonna get straightened out here in 1 second. I just got to turn the damn thing on, and here we go. You're gonna take a little ride, do a little upside down thingy until we get going, and then there we go. And now we're gonna put it that way. Thank you. Now we're on a tripod, and I'm gonna be less of a pain in the ass, hopefully, to deal with. All right, abuse of members, another key aspect of cults. Yeah, I mean, there's no way that you're going to have a situation of control like the way a cult is without eventually having a little abuse. And the abuse in Scientology can get pretty bad, and it comes from all the way at the top. And that means our friend Little Davey has kicked the shit out of many people in Scientology, and it is well known, and it is in books and whatnot. So yeah, abuse of Scientologists is very well known, and So, records, books, articles, or programs documenting the abuses of the leader or group. So, for some reason, it seems that a lot of cults actually like to keep records of their evil doings. Isn't that weird? You'd think you'd want to hide that. But apparently, Scientology compulsively keeps records on all their evil doings. And, you know, Hitler did the same thing. Interesting. Um, I don't understand why they would keep records on this stuff. It's weird. Um, Followers feeling that they're never able to be good enough. Now that shows how there can be a little bit of what do you call it? It's a parallel to abusive relationships, right? That in an abusive relationship, you're probably going to be made to feel that you're never good enough, that you're always making mistakes, that you're always messing up. And that's the same thing that happens in cults. Because if you're never good enough, then you always have to try to be better. And if you always have to try to be better, and I'm in charge, then I'm telling you what to do to be better. And I'm telling you in what ways you're not better, in what ways you need to improve, right? So see how it all fits together like a nice puzzle. A belief that the leader is right at all times. Don't question the leader, don't question the hierarchy. That's a big part of what a cult is. And a belief that the leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth or giving validation. So these are some of the aspects of cults. Now, think about an abusive relationship with a narcissist. The narcissist wants the absolute authoritarianism without accountability. Don't ask questions. Don't question my judgment. Do what I say. Zero tolerance for criticism or questions, right? That's what a narcissist does. If you say, why'd you go there? They say, why are you asking me why I went there? Why are you being weird? Why are you being jealous? Why are you being insecure? Whatever. Financial stuff, a lot of times in narcissistic relationships, the victim is held in a state of not knowing what's up financially. They are controlled with money. Fears about the outside world. A narcissist will cut you off from friends and family so that you don't have any options and you don't have anybody to talk to. And that's what a cult will do as well. A cult will seek to cut you off with anybody who is not down with the cult's message and control system. So if your dad says Scientology's a cult, you go to Scientology, they're going to start putting that wedge in between you and your dad. And you might think in the beginning, like, oh, that'll never work on me. I love my dad. I'm really close to my dad. But the thing is, see, you're going to be telling them all your issues about when your dad yelled at you when you were 3 and you peed your pants and it made you insecure and now you can't give speeches in front of the school or whatever. Okay. So they're going to find those things, those little moments in life with dad where he wasn't so nice. They're going to reframe dad for you. And over time, you're going to start to say, yeah, I never thought of dad in that way. Maybe they're right about dad. Never too late in the day for coffee. So what happens to a lot of people that I have heard about that get out of Scientology and other cults is the same thing that happens to people that had narcissistic parents. They end up with a narcissistic mate. So people that leave a cult end up in another cult. That cult could be a relationship, it could be a corporation, it could be a different religion or spiritual group, spiritual practices, whatever. But there may be something within that person that has been acclimated to this type of existence, this type of control structure. And they just kind of think that's what life is like. And so part of emerging from a cult is about retraining and clearing a lot of these issues. Earlier today, I found this video. I don't know if you guys have seen it, that went viral in England and I guess around the world. And it was really interesting to me because it validated my idea about Scientology being very similar to totalitarian regimes. And, I've talked to the point where people are like, why are you talking about East Germany? This country that's been gone for 30 something years, right? Because to me, it's a huge issue. To me, it's a really interesting parallel. So anyway, this guy, and I think his name was something like DJ Boogie Woogie or something like that, Dr. Boogie Woogie, something. Sorry, I don't have it exactly at the top of my head, but if you search for it, I'm sure you'll find it. And what happened was, this is a guy that goes and plays on public pianos that exist in malls and other places around England. And, he plays the piano very well, and he goes and he plays on the piano. And sometimes the mall security runs him off or whatever. So it's a little bit like auditing the mall, I guess, with the piano, their piano that they put out there that seemingly is for people to play. So he goes and plays those pianos. So what happened was there was this group of Chinese, mainland China, Chinese communists, whatever. I don't know what brought them together in their affiliation, but basically they came up to him saying, you can't film us, we're in the background of your shot, so you can't film here. And he's like, well, then get out of the background of my shot, and then we're all set. And they had such entitlement, and they had such an attitude. And then he's like, well, you guys are Chinese, right? As soon as he asked if they were Chinese, they accused him of racism. And immediately that reminded me of Scientology, that you start talking about Scientology and they call you a religious bigot. It is the exact same playbook. It's amazing. And it kind of blew my mind to see this playbook being run on these people in such a parallel fashion as Scientology. And it made me say, like, my God, my thesis is correct. This commonality between, you think your girlfriend is one, oblivious to everyone around them? Yeah. There is a, Daniel, there is, yeah. So let me see. I'm just learning how I can deal with these comments when I'm sitting here and not walking around on the street. So you think your girlfriend is one. Okay. So here's one thing to do. Disagree. That's a good way to find out. talk about yourself and refuse to listen to anything about your girlfriend and see how she reacts. Might be an ending thing. Well, yeah, if you're with a narcissist, that might be a good idea. I'm not dispensing advice right now, Daniel, but yeah, if you're dealing with a narcissist, and again, she's always right. Yeah. And then just what you want to do is don't get into an argument. Just be like, wrong, like the way Donald Trump does, right? When Donald Trump's in a debate and he has, because obviously he's a narcissist, right? And, just be like, I disagree, right? And 14 years, yeah. Well, I've worked with a lot of people in my day job dealing with coming out of narcissistic relationships. And the thing is, there's a certain thing that gets imprinted in us a lot of times in childhood where there's this yearning that we have for something in our parents, one or both of our parents, where there's some love we don't get, there's some connection that never happens. And we go on this thing of like, I know I'm going to find it. I know they have it. It's the problem of potential. When you see somebody's potential but yet none of it's happening today, it's all just potential. Then you get into the mode of potential, and you forget that there is no proof of that potential actually being anything beyond potential. So we get into a habit of yearning, and that yearning is never really fulfilled, but it's almost like a comfort zone. And this is the same thing that cult members get into, where they might have a thing where they feel, some people feel safer in a highly structured environment. Some people like to have somebody that limits their options because they don't have self-control and they have guilt issues. I've noticed with a lot of guys who have been actors, rock stars, famous, people that I've known and worked with, that they've been a player, they've done a lot of substances in their life, they've had a wild life, and then they get into this really controlling relationship where they're with somebody that's really jealous, somebody that wants to know every move they make, and is super controlling, and they kind of like it. And I don't get it, right? Because I couldn't deal with a relationship like that for a week, a day. But it's when you realize that you're actually addicted to this kind of relationship, then you can start breaking the pattern. So anyway, one of the things that I like to talk about, the reason that as a never having been a Scientologist and having this semi-obsession with Scientology, there's always kind of a question of like, why the hell do I care? Like, I wasn't even in it. What? And I was just watching Aaron Smith-Levin, and he was talking about the importance of people who've never been in Scientology that are doing this kind of work of exposing Scientology. But to me, it's in a larger context. Um, I'm not doing politics on this channel for sure, but it does touch the political arena because this whole realm of narcissistic control is pervasive, and it's not only Scientology. Scientology just has a more clownish version of it, but it's not only Scientology. Um, why don't we have the full Epstein list, right? Why are there any JFK assassination records still being hidden from us? Um, so, right, it's a way of life for a lot of people. It's the expectation that, well, that's just what it is. Um, and what'll happen is that it's kind of like the um, my dad left me at the store and didn't come back. Hello, okay, that's your name. Cool. Um, I mean, not laughing about your dad left you at the store, but who knows? Sounds like somebody that you don't want to hang out with too much anyway. Um, but one thing that people that are controlling will do is they'll want you to compromise, right? It's like if I say, I'll sell you this candy bar for $100, and you say, I'll buy it for one. And I say, well, then let's just compromise and it'll be 50. Um, it's 50 because they started at 100 and it's a ridiculous amount. And then they can act like they gave up 50% of it in their amazing compromise, and then act like you're being unreasonable if you won't compromise with them. That's kind of what a narcissist will do, if they're even faking like they're compromising. Um, so I heard a funny story. What was her name? Oh my God. It was on Natalie's channel last night. This woman in Ventura, I'm sorry, I forget your name. Is it Claire? What is it? I don't know. I connected with her today. I forget her name. But anyway, you guys will be seeing her. She's the woman that talked to Natalie, and what was Natalie's channel, Life After Scientology, something like that. Diane, thank you so much, Cindy. So, right, Jack and Diane, that's right. Okay, Diane, I should remember that. So anyway, Diane was talking about, she was a member of another church. She was in an interfaith group. And so Scientology joined their interfaith group, and like a lot of different religions were members of it. And one of the things that you had to do to be in the interfaith group was you had to do some volunteer work for the interfaith group. Scientology never did any of that volunteer work. They just came trying to recruit people from the other religions to bring them into Scientology. And then they started making these, giving people access to these courses that they could do online. And the courses were just basic, kind of standard stuff that you could, you could learn certain skills or something. It wasn't any heavy Scientology. Definitely hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Xenu level. And so she like did these classes. Easy pass, yeah, definitely. So she did these classes. Then they started hitting her up and like, hey, you're only 3 classes away from being able to be a volunteer minister. And then they got her on the Scientology list, mailing list, and proceeded to bombard her with all this stuff. Meanwhile, she's never even been to a Scientology org in her life. And finally, they're sending her the stuff of like how we're going to mess with the Squirrel Squad in Hollywood. And so she just like passes it on to Jessica Palmadessa, and everybody knows the deal. And what was funny was that Scientology puts this thing out of like, they're on TikTok. We're going to beat them at their own game. We need everybody to show up. So they're sending Diane in Ventura, who's not a Scientologist, this stuff like show up at the Hollywood Org with your camera and film them on TikTok. And in Scientology, they have some, L. Ron Hubbard said, when the anti-Scientologists are making a lot of noise, that's proof that Scientology is winning, right? So, like I always say, Scientology is a heads I win, tails you lose religion, right? If we are protesting against them, that just shows how awesome they are. And so then why don't they come out and give us cookies or whatever? So yeah, they were saying we're going to bull bait. So Scientology, yeah, TikTok banned them, but I guess YouTube isn't going to. And I ended my TikTok account as soon as I heard that. I was like, forget that. I'm not messing with that. If TikTok is getting rid of Streets LA and Jessica and who knows who else, I haven't really gotten going on TikTok anyway. So whatever. But sorry for being a little bit all over the place. But back to the Chinese in London that were going off on this guy for filming with them in the background, that they kind of chose to be in the background, you would think. There's this entitlement, and you see it in the eyes of Scientologists when you're protesting, where they look at you with this disdain, this like, oh, really, you're doing that kind of energy. And you realize that they are in this bubble. Like, and how are they in the bubble? Well, again, these aspects of a cult. Absolute authoritarianism without accountability. Zero tolerance for criticism or question. Unreasonable fears about the outside world. A belief that anybody who quits is evil. And making the followers feel they're never good enough, so they're always reaching for the brass ring. The leader's always right. So if you disagree, you're not. And believing the leader has all the truth. And the thing is, what makes it easier to break through with these cults is that once you start dismantling their house of cards, there's a certain point where inevitably it all falls apart. Because if any of these things, it's kind of like in law. If I can prove a reasonable doubt, my client gets off. Okay, there might be all this evidence, but if I just show one reasonable doubt, it starts being that little virus in the mind, whatever, like in the Matrix, it starts working on you. So, for example, if the belief is that the leader is infallible, then if you can show any fallibility of the leader, the person might autocorrect for it when it happens, But if you can show it and then you can repeat it back, like Davey Miscavige says this is the fastest growing religion on earth. It doesn't look like it's really growing very quickly. What's up with that? Any Scientologist who's been in Scientology for any length of time might have noticed. And they're not going to just say, oh, yeah, wow, you awakened me. I'm quitting today. That's not going to happen. But they might just start kind of having that doubt work on them. And that's the seeds that we plant. So anything that discredits the leader can wipe out the whole illusion in the mind of one of the followers. And any other thing, like if they want to say that people on the outside are so horrible, that they're SPs, that they are, the worst form of humanity or whatever, then if you can show that that's not the case, obviously they'll go through a period where they say, yeah, they're just doing that to get us out of Scientology. They're doing that for a reason. Yeah, that will happen. But they will also, in the back of their mind, they will notice what's going on. And they will start to notice, I kind of like that person. They seemed nice. If I wasn't in Scientology, I might want to hang out with them. And so if that happens, then that's another one of those little things that can start going, all right? Another thing that I like is that Sea Org members have a hell of a work ethic. If I ran a car dealership, I would definitely be looking for somebody like an ex-Sea Org member to sell cars for me. Because I know this person, number one, they know how to take orders. So whatever the sales technique that I would teach them, they would be able to execute it pretty easily, I think. They're used to rejection, absolutely. And they are definitely used to working long hours. And longer than any car dealership would ever expect anybody to work. Like a Sea Org member who started selling cars would probably be no big deal for that person to be at the dealership every minute that dealership is open to the public, right? I mean, we open at 7 in the morning and we go till 10 at night. Yeah, cool. That's my normal work hours anyway. Fine, I'll do it. Okay. That person, hey, Linda, I was just telling my stepdad about your Latvian name situation last night. I was even going to tease you the other day, Linda, when I saw you on some other live stream and be like, oh, you're cheating with this live stream, but I didn't do that. Anyway, so yeah, the work ethic of a Sea Org member, man, I wish I owned a car dealership just so I could like go there and poach them from Scientology. You run a motel all by yourself, Daniel? Wow, that must be hard. I went to one motel once in Utah. You're not in Utah. All hours. Okay. I went to this motel in this tiny town in like northern Utah, right on the Idaho border in California. And it was like, fill out this card and put it through the slot of the office. There was nobody at the hotel. There was like 5 rooms, and you just filled out the card either with a credit card number, you put cash in the envelope, you put it through the slot, and then you picked whatever room was empty, and that was it. So Daniel, maybe you could switch your motel to that method. Maybe have a little time for yourself. Um, but yeah, so the idea is, so what is going to get a Scientologist out? One thing is them seeing the leader as, I bet it does. Do you clean the rooms and you check people in and you do everything? You don't even have maids, nothing, Daniel? That sounds like, and how many rooms? Uh, that sounds like way too much. Um, Everything. How many rooms, Daniel? Sorry, everybody. 10 rooms. Okay, well, it's still a lot of work, I'm sure, but a little bit more doable. Are you way out in the boonies somewhere or what? Um, so the thing that's going to get a Scientologist thinking about maybe this isn't so great is probably going to be losing that faith. Trinity County, that's way up north, right? I believe. Like northeast, I'm guessing, like mountains, like not far from Shasta or something like that. That's my guess. I have no idea. But Reading. Okay, right. Yeah. Humboldt. Okay. Well, we know what's there. Um, Maybe need to take a trip up to Humboldt, get me some wholesale pricing. Um, anyway, yeah, if you can see that the leader is hello. Okay, these Spanish names have too many names, so which one is the actual name? Sol A. Cortez Velasquez. Hello. Emerald Triangle. Yeah. Shelly Miscabbage. Free to you. Yeah, awesome. You're my new best friend then. Road trip. So anyway, if they can kind of not revere the leader would be one way. Being abused to the point where it pushed them over the edge would be another way that they would possibly leave. Seeing through the philosophy, maybe, right? To me, it's really about if you get in a position where you've been abused so much you just can't take it anymore, right? And that's the same with narcissistic relationships of all kinds. That at some point, people just decide, I can't do this anymore. And they're out of there. It does happen. And so, one second. And then, also if they see that the person, the narcissist, starts showing certain cracks in their facade, that'll get them out of. So it's the same with the leader. And where their doubts just start working on them so much that they actually kind of crack the code themselves. And that does happen, like in relationships. The problem is with cults, you don't just have a relationship with the leader. You probably don't even know the leader. You probably never met the leader. But depending on the size of the cult. And everybody else in the cult reinforces the dogma of the cult. And so then it's harder to get out. When it's one person, they might be telling you your partner is a narcissist. You should get out of that. So, but if you're in a cult and everybody you know is in the cult with you, then you're probably going to find it a lot harder. And especially when it's a cult, which most of them are, that is held together by snitching, by disloyalty within the membership. Yeah, the cult, Julia, disconnects you from family. They disconnect you from anybody critical of the cult. They do not want N theta. N theta is negative information about Scientology. And no, I have not word cleared that word. So the definition could be far more complex than that. But in my understanding, N theta is anti-Scientology information. And they don't want you having any of that. If you guys saw last night, Chris Without a Hellcat, really cool dude, really funny, really smart, and really slick. Anyway, a lot of adjectives for Chris. Awesome dude. One of the first guys I met in that crew. And he has been killing it out there. Last night, he was over at Big Blue, where there's all those blue colored buildings. You've seen them in all the Scientology documentaries if you're not from LA. But anyway, there was a hotel like probably less than 50 yards away from where he was standing. And hello, Yelene. Is that how you pronounce it? Medellin? Okay. Don't know what that means. I know Medellin, but I don't know Medellin. I think I'm saying that right. Medellin, whatever. Anyway, Scientology was busing people 50 yards from one building to where they're staying in a hotel and driving the van into a parking garage so that the Scientologists didn't have to walk like a third of a block and cross the street and go into the hotel. Probably way less than 50 yards. Okay. They were running vans back and forth in both directions for a while. Well, one van, but it kept going back and forth, like picking up people from the hotel, bringing it over to Scientology, picking up people from Scientology, taking them to the hotel. It was back and forth, back and forth. Panama, cool. That's why I didn't know where you were talking about, because I don't really know any other towns in Panama except Panama City. So I am, oh, you did, Daniel. Yeah, wasn't it wild? Because they so don't want anybody in the cult to hear one sentence that we might say to them. When they have to walk by us, I mean, it's like you could just see them blocking out the information as they walk by. It's hilarious. You understand English, but you don't speak it or write it, Yelene? Is that what you're saying? Entiendo means understand, right? I think, yeah. I know comprendo, but and yeah. Anyway, um, so what is the big fear, right? Like, if you have the solution to all the problems of the world, imagine that. I don't make that claim, do you? The solution to all your problems. Here it is, right here. Just pay me. Okay. Um, when you kind of, yeah, I mean, you would feel a little bit smug. I mean, you would probably feel a little superior. But you know what you wouldn't feel? You wouldn't feel threatened by people who don't have those same solutions. Thanks for subscribing. That's awesome. Your mom was interested. Awesome. Your dad is an amazing dude. Um, Holden, Connie, add me to your life. No, you got to add yourself to my life. I can't go reaching out into the cosmos, into Xenu's galactic quadrant, trying to grab people into my live streams. No, you just subscribe and press the bell button or whatever the bell thing, and then they will tell you when something's up. So that's your best bet. Yeah, they have zero free thoughts. They think that they're the ones that are free, that you're the one stuck in your reactive mind. And so, they feel very sure of that. But okay, Yelene, I don't know if that means I subscribed or subscribe me, right? I can't subscribe you. You got to subscribe yourself. But if you did subscribe, thank you very much. Where are we? Um, so anyway, these people cannot tolerate. She subbed. That's what I figured it was. But I don't know verb tenses. I speak a lot of languages, and when I was a little kid, I used to speak fluent Spanish. And one thing that I maintained, not very many words were maintained in Spanish, but I had a Mexican babysitter, and my mother, when she would try to say things in Spanish, she couldn't roll her R's. And I thought that sounded really dumb because I spoke fluent Spanish. I was like 6 or whatever. So even after I forgot Spanish, I would practice rolling my R's every now and then just to not lose it. And then when I started learning other languages, that came in handy. But unfortunately, Spanish is way down the list. I've never formally studied it, except I studied with a private tutor for Chichichana. I like your attitude. Thank you. So anyway, yeah, I don't speak Spanish. But I speak French, so I can clue into some Spanish, and I kept my rolled R, luckily. So that really helped when I learned Swedish, my second language. Anyway, so the thing that I was talking about is the idea that one word can freak them out to the point where they have to act really culty and they have to run away from anybody just asking a question or anything. Okay. Oh, Viejo, which should be with a V, right? She spelled it wrong. I would get that if it was with a V. Okay, yeah, I'm old. Right. Um, One of the Scientologist trolls got on and like, how did you get old? And I didn't answer them, but I was basically going to say, by not dying, that's what happens. If you don't die, you get old. If you do die, you don't have to get old. There's the secret to aging. There you go. My name here is Davey Mismanige. And that's the only one. Yeah. So whatever. Um, oh, we're not doing Republican or Democrat. Anyway, who are you asking about, Linda? That does Scientology? I wonder. I thought you were trying to bring politics into this, but let's see. Anyway, if I had to guess, I don't know. I don't think Scientology really gets that involved politically. Um, I'm really not sure. They mostly vote conservatively. Yeah, right. The coerced abortions. I mean, Scientology doesn't really line up in some kind of. No, they do vote, Julie. They definitely vote when it is against Mark Bunker and Clearwater. Aaron said that every single Scientologist in Clearwater showed up, every eligible, Scientologist showed up to vote against Mark Bunker. I just don't think that it's a big deal in Scientology. And as a cult, they probably don't want to get that involved in politics because, they don't want people they don't want people fighting amongst themselves about issues that have no upside for Scientology. So I haven't heard a lot of stuff about Scientology getting involved. I mean, obviously, if somebody is in office, they're going to donate to their causes. They're going to do things that make them more wanting to pick up the phone if Scientology calls. Um, so anyway, yeah. But the thing is, if you watch the older Clearwater protests from 15, 20 years ago, when it was Operation Clambake and Anonymous and the beginning of that stage of Scientology protests, people would go out on the street and just say Xenu, and Scientologists would literally go like la 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 to not hear what the protesters were saying. Oh, awesome, Julie. I love it. Julie B calls the Fort Harrison to make reservations. That is awesome. At some point, they'll get so desperate for cash that they'll do with you like they did with Diane and practically make you a member just to get some money off of you. But that's funny. I applaud that. Hip, hip, hooray, as Scientologists like to say. I mean, nothing wrong with a little phone call. I mean, man, I used to make prank phone calls a lot. But yeah, they answer every time because when you block your number, I believe it. They're not going to take a chance on losing out on some cash. And plus, it's usually Scientologists calling them. So I'm sure that plenty of those Scientologists have their numbers blocked all the time. You know, it must be a normal thing for Scientologists to do that. So it probably doesn't come, it probably isn't a weird thing to them if they see like unknown number or something like that. There's probably a lot of paranoid Scientologists that do that. But one thing about getting in their heads that I learned about a long time ago from those protests, from those early, like Bob Minton and all of that back in the day. So when a Scientologist goes in for auditing, they do some checks to see, and I don't know the full details, ask an ex-Scientologist, but they do some checks to see whether you're ready for auditing, right? You can't be starving, you know, you can't be really nervous or something. You can't be sleepy, like you didn't get any sleep the night before, whatever. So they check that kind of stuff. And then apparently, they check you on the meter, the e-meter, the lie detector test. And then they, if you are interbulated, remember how I was talking about Scientologists make up other words for things. So if you're interbulated, it means something's upsetting you, something's preoccupying your mind, and maybe you can't really focus on doing this thing. So now, instead of going up this glorious bridge to total freedom, you gotta clear your interbulation at whatever, $200 an hour, before you can get on to your bridge work. So that means if I'm standing out in front of Scientology and I say, Xenu, and that interbulates you, although I don't think it does so much now. No, Saeed, I do not. Tell me all about it. Then that means you have to pay more money to Scientology in order to do the same thing that you intended to do. It means I just upped the cost of your bridge slightly for today. Now, if I up the cost of your bridge every day or on a regular basis, and you find that you're spending an extra $100 or $200, then that means that you have to spend that extra money, which means maybe you're not having as good of a time in Scientology because it's becoming very frustrating. See you later, Daniel. It's becoming very frustrating for you to attend because every time you get interbulated by the protesters out front, you walk in and you got to spend $150, $200. Yeah, well, if people are, I don't ban people outright in general, unless they really keep coming with stuff. I just put them on a little timeout, like go to your room, learn how to be nice, then you can come back and we'll try again. And then if you keep doing it, okay, whatever. I don't have moderators. I don't have, a whole infrastructure here. Yeah, I didn't know what the flag was for sure. I thought it was LGBTQ, whatever, the pride flag. But it could have been some other flag. As far as I could see, it was very tiny on my screen. Yeah, whatever. Um, so generally, if a Scientologist is getting on here asking if you're gay, they're not doing it from a nice place. No, I'm not gay. Sorry, Saeed. I'm straight. But yeah, yeah, it's no big deal. Right? He's saying I am. Okay, whatever. I don't give a shit. Um, Not really worried about being called gay, and maybe 50 years ago that was a thing. Um, I'd love to narrate audiobooks. That would be great. If you have a lead, I'd love to know about it. Yeah, trolls, whatever. I mean, Scientology trolls are the best because they give you these quotes from 50 years ago that they think are going to work. Like, what are your crimes? What are your crimes? You have not told me your crimes. Um, um, so anyway, it's interesting that Scientologists don't get the connection that if you can't hear some information and coffee, tea is not my thing, really. No, coffee all the time. You know, sometimes I fall asleep on the couch at night and I wake up and I don't know what time it is. And the first thing on my mind is, I wonder if I slept all night and I can have coffee now. And then I will, no mercy. Um, do I not believe in science? Yeah, I believe in science. Why would I not believe in science, Mark? Yes, I believe in science. Not so much Scientology, but science. Yeah, it's not about believing in science. It's like science is a method. It's not really a belief system, right? It's a scientific method. Yes, science and Scientology are way different, Julie. Um, and it's kind of funny that Scientology has that name. It's a legacy name from before when they were trying to pass themselves off as a science. And when that didn't work, then they went the religion route, which was probably smart. Somebody else need to go to their room and sit down and somebody else does too. Oh, this is probably the sign of the SP fighters are at work. Here's the cool thing about all these different channels popping up talking about Scientology. That means that the Scientology detectives need to monitor all those channels. And ideally, they need to monitor all the live streams, which means that these hardcore Sea Org Scientologists have to listen to this stuff. And X% of them are going to leave Scientology because of that. I don't know. I have not solved for X. Okay. But there's a number. It's not zero. X does not equal zero. Um, a certain amount of people that engage with us from within Scientology, not only do they leave, but they spy on Scientology and send us reports before they leave. And so all the wonderful trolls out there, um, you are absorbing N theta. You are absorbing information designed specifically by all the lovers of Xenu out here in the SP universe to fragment your Scientological brain and to make all the pieces not fit together anymore. So it all falls apart. Tick tock, tick tock. As Tori Magoo used to say, time is on our side. Yeah, everybody's a target. So what? No, I don't have outdoor pets. Um, everybody's a target. Okay, whatever. And I'm not minimizing you, Chichana. But it's like when Scientologists start threatening me, like we're watching you, we know who you are, all this crap. Duh. I know you know who I am. You have 80,000 cameras out in front of every org. So you've taken pictures of me. And from there, it doesn't take much. No, I know. I mean, I get it. I get it. People, I mean, Scientology has done horrible things. They have killed pets. They have framed people. I mean, if you check out, what was her name? Miss Lovely, the book. Oh God, I forget. Paulette Cooper. Paulette Cooper. She wrote an article about Scientology, I believe, in the 70s, and they went after her. They framed her for arson, all this stuff. If Scientology hadn't gotten busted for all of its crimes, and they found the information in all of Scientology's evidence, if that wouldn't have happened, Paulette Cooper would have done serious jail time for arson. Or paint color. Yeah, my eyes slightly match the building. So yeah, Paulette is so lucky. And they just, I mean, that's their whole thing, that they just want to destroy anybody. But the thing is, everybody knows that now. And so if you can show a timeline of here's when I started talking about Scientology, and here's where the bullshit started happening, it's going to take far. I mean, 20 years ago, if you would have said, excuse me, Scientology did it, people would think you were a conspiracy theorist blaming Scientology. Now, if you could show, oh, I went and talked about Scientology and then they did XYZ against me, people say, yep, that's what they do. And most people are going to see it your way. So anybody that does this work, that protests, hey, Kitty, anybody that protests against Scientology, they ought to know Scientology is going to do something about it at some point. Most of the time, they're just going to try to freak you out with some threats or whatever. If you're real, I mean, it really depends on how much they feel like you're hurting their bottom line. Are you depriving them of new members? Are you causing old members to leave? And are you depriving them of cash? And if the answer to all of those is yes, then you're probably going to be hearing from Scientology or their detectives one way or the other. Aaron Smith Levin, okay, he's seen private detectives out in front of his house. He even has a video where he went up and confronted one, and the person just drove away. Nothing happened. He wasn't confronting with any violence or anything. And so they do these things. But that's just a sign that they're scared. There was a Scientologist that followed Streets LA William, followed into a parking garage where he had his car parked. And he just filmed the guy being weird, following him into this parking garage late at night, going up the stairs, tailing him. Just made Scientology look stupid. Like, what are you going to get? You know who this guy is. This is a famous guy. This is a guy known to the police, because he's been filming the police for a while before the Scientology stuff happened. Yeah, totally creepy. And, Leah Remini, in her lawsuit against Scientology, tried to get a preliminary injunction, I believe that's the wording, don't hold me to it, that would prevent Scientology from doing all this stalking, fair game, they call it, would prevent them from doing it starting now, like before the trial even happens. And so far, the judge hasn't gone for that. I don't know if that's a settled issue or they're going to talk about it more, but the judge declined to give her that. And it might be settled. It might be just like, well, we'll deal with it at the actual trial. But again, when Scientologists have to assign their people to listen to all of these channels, to watch all of these channels, to hear all this information. I have made Sea Org members laugh when I was messing with one of their people. Okay, I made them laugh because, laughter can be an involuntary response. It is an involuntary response. I mean, you can suppress it to some degree, okay? But if I can make a Sea Org member laugh with my N theta, then that's a sign that there are some cracks in the armor. And those cracks will widen over time. So Scientology's in a situation where they have to get people trained to be able to watch us. So whatever training they do, they have to make them bulletproof from N theta, from negative information about Scientology. But there's no way to make somebody 100% bulletproof against that. The only way that you could do that is to read them in on the scam. Okay? Make them a participant in the scam. And there's somebody else that needed to go bye-bye. If I was gay, I would happily tell you all about it. Not an issue. And since I'm not, I won't. But, but it shows you the homophobia of Scientology because it's just like calling you a criminal. Like, what are your crimes? Um, and yeah, they're putting all kinds of people in here, aren't they? Good job, Scientology. You're on the ball a little bit more than usual. You're not just doing that empty guy, the empty headed dork that so loves to join these live streams. Um, you got some people with some upgrade. Now, instead of what are your crimes, it's you are gay. I know they're so humorless. I wish they came up with some good shit, because I like to laugh. Mr. Empty Pants. Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the incels in the Sea Org are very jealous of those of us who are not. Yeah, OSA is, I mean, they're the inceliest of the incels. And those people, I mean, imagine being an incel and then you're not even allowed to take care of it yourself. That's the Sea Org. I mean, that's a lot of pent up frustration. If you could bottle all the pent up frustration of Sea Org members, you'd have free energy for the world, right? You could run all the turbines and everything off of that pent up energy of the Sea Org members that has nowhere to go. I mean, they put it into hard labor, into busting up rocks or whatever the hell they do. So they don't want them to expend any of their energy with any kind of pleasuring, if you know what I mean. And if they're going to have any contact, yeah, it's a high crime. Can't even have an extra shake at the urinal without having a sec check. I believe it. Yeah. Um, like one shake only per L. Ron Hubbard's instructions. Otherwise, two shakes, man. You're getting into dangerous, dangerous territory, Sea Org members. And you wouldn't want to be in dangerous territory because that would jeopardize your eternity. And we wouldn't want to jeopardize your eternity with a little, schmirkenbergen off in the bathroom or wherever you do it. That's also probably why they put them in these bunk bed rooms, because they're in these rooms with a bunch of snitches, because Scientologists are required to snitch on each other. It's part of the religion. And if you got six people, that you got six people in these bunk beds, and anybody tries any illicit pleasuring, it is going to be noticed and reported to the higher ups. And yeah, the cameras aren't good point. The cameras aren't only on the outside. That's how they caught Odo blowing the other secret member. No way. Are you serious? You're not just messing around. Okay. I didn't say it. I'm just reading words, man. Okay. I don't need any lawsuits here about Odo. Odo's has apparently two sisters who left Scientology. Hey, kitty, you will get fed later. No es la verdad. Okay, cool. I won't watch that much of it, but maybe just enough to verify. But how many of you guys have seen that English clip with the piano player guy, who gets messed with by the Chinese communists? And the video that I did about it this morning, where I compared them to Scientology because of their reaction. He has a report, not the actual footage. Okay. Well, a report, okay, anybody can make a report. Or is it like a Scientology report on it? If that's what it is, damn. Um, that's the one case where I would believe Scientology. Because if they have a report of one guy going down on another guy and getting punished, um, you know, Scientology has had other Tiananmen squares. And if you notice, China had Tiananmen Square and there's still a dictatorship. Um, so just having Tiananmen Square isn't necessarily as decisive an event as we may like. But yeah, Odo, and I'm very curious where that name comes from. It sounds like it could be German or something, but some variation on Otto, I guess, but who knows? Um, Me being a language guy, I'm always like, where's that from? What's that name all about? Um, and I found out about Miscavige from Jenna Miscavige the other day. I was so pleased to meet her. Awesome woman. Amazing stuff she has gone through. And I asked her, um, what is Miscavige? I never hear that name anywhere else. She said it was Polish. It was changed from some other Mishkavachkovich, whatever, into Miscavige. So that solves the Miscavige thing because, like, when his dad went on different things, people would pronounce Miscavige incorrectly, of course, because you've never seen that damn name anywhere. Everybody's Miscavige and whatever, and these Miscaviges will act like, well, duh, Miscavige, like it's some household name, and it's not. I mean, how many times do you see that name around? Yeah, exactly. Ellis Island, all the other places. There was a story that I heard about this whole Chinese family that was named Lewis. And it was one of those Ellis Island stories. Like this Chinese guy is coming into the country and the person in front of him gets asked a question and he says, Lewis, and he gets through. So the Chinese guy walks up and they ask him the question. He doesn't speak English. So he says, Lewis, and he gets through. It's like, yay, I got the answer right. And forever after, that entire Chinese family is named Lewis. So yeah, that kind of Ellis Island thing. And it's not only Ellis Island. I mean, it's all kinds of places where immigrants came in. But yeah, a Chinese family named Lewis. No, it's not really a known story. It's just like something I heard from my teacher in sixth grade or something, which probably means it's bullshit, but who knows, whatever. But anyway, so back to what I was talking about. Long live Lewis. Odo level gossip. So it is a Scientology report, Chichichana. It's a Scientology official like knowledge report on Odo or something like that. I'm interested in that. Hey Naomi, that was my grandma's name. Hello. Are you going to come up with weird stuff now after the wave? Please don't, Naomi. You got a great name. Don't want to ruin it. So the thing is, a cult, again, is like a narcissistic relationship. And when he confronts him about it, Odo's reaction is like a dog who got caught eating out of the trash. Hey, Odo, it's okay to be gay. And those are the activities, some of the activities of gay people. So um, I have worked in the fashion world, or fashion world adjacent, for a long time. So yeah, there is an email. You can definitely shoot me a link. And anybody on here, if you haven't liked or subscribed, please do so. If the Lord Xenu calls on you to do that, I would really appreciate it. It would make a big difference. My channel is kind of exploding these days, and it took about 4 weeks exactly to make it to 1,000, and I went to 1,250 like within 2 days after that, or something like that. Don't ever quote me on numbers because I will mess it up. Thanks, Daniel. That's awesome. Um, um, yeah, it's really helpful for people to do that, because then I can do more of this and I can get out there. But I don't want to be always at an org every time. And oh yeah, and my email, you don't even have to look. It is Davey Mismanige, one word, at protonmail.com. Thanks, Rafael Quintana. I'm very grateful. Um, Actually, my daughter's had a friend named Quintana. That was her first name. Probably not a normal average first name, but maybe it is. I have no idea. Thanks, Chichichano. So another channel was promoting me, a true crime channel. Okay, let's see. Is this going to go in a good way or a bad way, Amy? Um, is it going to go, what are your crimes? Or is it going to go, yeah, they were promoting you. Never know when somebody first pops up here and crime is in their message. But I do love the Scientology predictability. What are your crimes? What are your crimes? You can see videos from out on the streets of, yeah, dude, if you put Nazi in your title, you don't get to hang out here. No, that's not going to be. And you put Soviet Nazi, we're going to have a slight issue. You got to come in a little bit. I've been sharing your channel like an unpopular teenager with a joint. I like it. We've all been there. We've all, speaking for myself, been that unpopular teenager trying to make up for it with a joint. And yeah, down the rabbit hole. I saw that the dog video where Scientologists were petting the attack dog. Doobie. Yes, Daniel, Doobie. Not until this is done, though. Yeah, I've been trying to get some attention on that dog video because I think it's important to the case. So anyway, the dog attack guy, Patrick, I think is his name, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, at least 2 weeks ago, he walks right by me on Hollywood Boulevard in front of the testing center. And you can see it. It's in my shorts feed, not in my shorts, in my shorts feed. And he goes by, and what's her face? I always forget those Sea Org names. But anyway, the girl that always sits at the desk. They have nicknames, they have names, whatever, for her. She comes running out, dog's wagging its tail. She's petting the dog. It's hugs and kisses, and they're obviously very well acquainted with each other. And I thought that, it's not like slam dunk proof for a court case, but it is interesting. to see that, yes, Scientology knows this guy knows the Scientologist. This is proven. Um, and so, yeah, it's really nice when people share my video. That really helps a lot. I don't know how the algorithm works, but I can imagine a share is probably the equivalent to quite a few likes in terms of what it does for the algorithm. But no offense. I was talking about my aging before, and like, it's a result of failing to die. Then you get old. And so that is what has happened so far. And hopefully we will continue that tradition into the future. Thank you very much. But so anyway, going back to the original thing, many Scientologists who leave find themselves replicating the kind of narcissistic relationship that exists within Scientology, that the parishioners have with Scientology, and they replicate that usually in abusive relationships of some form, controlling relationships, but it could also be a job. And in rare cases, it could be a religion or another cult. And so the thing is, what people need to get at is the very whatever it is that draws them in, right? In Scientology, they talk about your ruin. Your ruin is your weak spot. It's where they get you. It's what they aim for. And so if you've been in Scientology and you got out, you still need to process that ruin, because Scientology didn't do it. Scientology might have made you feel like you processed some of that, but I bet you didn't really process it, because they needed it there to keep you captive. And so that same thing, that same unmet need, that same trauma response, that's the first thing that you need to deal with when you get out of Scientology. Because when you get out of a cult, you are vulnerable to getting into another situation that gives you that feeling of security, but sucks you dry financially, emotionally, spiritually, and on all other levels. It is important to deal with this thing. If you have been in a narcissistic relationship where you've been used, where you have been manipulated, abused, you have been trained to shut up, to not talk about certain things. You have been trained to be in a narcissistic relationship. Caleb, you're going to have to do a little homework about what Scientology is. I can't really explain all of Scientology. What I can say, it's a cult that finds people's weakness, gets them in to manipulate them. And hello, just like I have done with this dude. Do you feel manipulated? Yeah? Are you under my spell? So it's a cult. Don't go there. Don't take the test. Google Scientology. Do some reading. Come back to one of these discussions. And Daniel, That's a smart thing. Cats are amazing. Um, yeah, I love cats, but he doesn't go outside, so he doesn't get any Scientology Kool-Aid preparation. Um, so, yeah, you have to find that weak spot in yourself. You have to work on that weak spot. If you've been in a narcissistic relationship romantically, if you've been in any kind of narcissistic organization, which could be a religion, a cult, it could be a company, you could have that asshole boss that is a narcissist that runs the company or runs his little section of the company, just like a cult. And so, when you get out of one of those relationships, or when you get out of Scientology, you might think, problem solved. I did it. But if you haven't gone and handled, now I'm sounding Scientological, if you haven't healed that issue that attracts you to the narcissist, that attracts you to that charismatic person that seems to have all the answers, that just makes you want to fall in line behind them for the illusion of safety and security. If you haven't healed your own insecurity, need to belong, yearning, shame, and all kinds of other issues, you are at risk of replicating the pattern thinking that you didn't. Have you ever met a woman who's been in a string of abusive relationships? Every time she gets in a new relationship, she says, well, that guy was tall, so now I'll get a short guy. That guy won't abuse me. And then he does. Oh, well, all the guys were smart, so I'll get a dumb guy. He won't abuse me. And then he does. And when she looks back at the pattern, the thing that unites all of them is their abusive nature. So the reason that I like to talk about Scientology is because I like to help people release those things that make us crave what Scientology promises, to make it so that people are truly immune from joining cults. That's what I want to do. I want to expose the inner workings, the philosophical construction of the cult. Like, what is it based on? What are the moving parts? How do they fit together? So that we can take it apart. We all have craving, okay? We all have unmet needs that can be abused, that can be leveraged against us. And like, when you are a baby and a toddler, you need everything your way or it is traumatic, right? If you want a cookie right now and mommy won't give you a cookie right now, that's a big event when you are 18 months old. That is massive frustration, the feeling of impotence, anger, shame at your weakness for not being able to get your own cookies, okay? Little kids get traumatized at anything because they need like 100% perfect, pure love at all moments of early childhood. And if they don't get it, they start developing these issues. And if they don't handle these issues, and you don't have to Go all the way back to when you're 2 and you didn't get that cookie when you wanted it. And it's not that you should have gotten that cookie when you wanted it. And it's not that any parent could have ever done anything for you to not have those issues. The most perfect parent will have kids with issues because you cannot fulfill every need of a toddler, of somebody in their terrible twos, okay? But the point is, all the unfulfilled needs snowball. And then layer in some abuse, layer in some neglect, and all of that. Oh, yeah, and little kids are really, really resilient in that way. But some of these things last a lifetime if they're not dealt with, handled. That's like a Scientology word, so I'm trying not to say it, but it's also a human word in English that we should be able to utilize. So the thing is, we all have these issues, and we are in denial of these issues. And so we go play these issues out in our romantic relationships, in our friendships, in our careers, in our social groups, and whatever. And to the degree that we hit a low point, that we don't have the tools for working on our issues, we become susceptible to something like Scientology. And apparently, the smarter you are, the more susceptible you are. And you would think that that would make you immune, but it doesn't. And yeah, kids think this is the truth. That I remember my mom got some beads. I mean, how early 70s, right? She got beads, for a window. There was like beads instead of blinds or curtains in this one window. And I was checking them out. I pulled one down. I pulled one string of beads down from this newly installed beads array. And when I did that, I went in, I was like terrified to show my mom, like she just put this thing in there and I broke it. She happened to be holding one of those long steak forks, for flipping steaks. And she was cooking. And she turned around and she had this thing in her hand. And her boyfriend was just joking and said, "Don't kill him, don't stab him, don't kill him." He was messing around. I would laugh at the joke now. Okay, at the time, I thought the only reason she didn't kill me was because he said, "Don't kill him." I thought, and she was abusive, so, whatever. But she didn't stab anybody. But I thought she was going to kill me because he was saying, "Don't do it." And then I thought, he's the one that saved me. Okay. So when I remembered it later, I was like, obviously she wasn't trying to kill me. What the hell? And I just remembered the event like 30 years after it happened or whatever. And like, oh, obviously that wasn't it. But these things get stuck in us, these little fears, these traumas. People do take things literally. I was probably 6 when that happened or something. So we take things very literally, and we get fears trapped in us, and we crave security. And the thing is, nobody has your back for life 100% of the time, right? So you crave certainty and security, and this is what cults seem to offer. But as soon as you get in, what do? They have a snitching culture. So there's no security in a snitching culture. And so you're screwed all over again, right? But of course they love bomb you in the beginning. So you go in there and just like a narcissist will love bomb you in the beginning of the relationship or to get you into the relationship. And then comes the After love bombing, what comes next? The devaluation stage. And so the cult then, first they're like, you're so awesome. We want you. And then then once you're in and you're hooked, then they start devaluing you. What's your problem? You don't want to do the next rundown. You don't want to pay. You don't want to donate all your money to the IAS. And the thing is, what you have to realize with Scientology, you're at risk of being kicked out anytime you don't go along with what they want. And what is kicked out? Rejected. How many of you enjoy rejection? How many of you crave rejection? Let me take a wild guess. A minority of you crave rejection. There might be some masochistic people out there that rejection is their thing. But most people don't crave rejection. And so Scientology always holds the threat of rejection over your head. Another thing that does a lot of times is it creates a reality where you're worried about getting rejected so much that you don't even think about that you could be the rejecter, that you could reject them. A narcissist in a romantic relationship will also hold the threat of rejection over your head. And the minute that you start the moment that you display any rejection of them, they will freak the fuck out. Okay? And that's what a cult will do too. So being in a cult is like being in a relationship with a narcissist. People that are in cults could go back and forth between cult to narcissist to cult to narcissist. Not that many people have that many cults in their on their resume, but most people go from narcissistic relationship to narcissistic relationship. And because certain outer things are a little bit different, they think it's a whole other deal. So that's my rant for today. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It means the world to me. It spreads the message where we can do deeper dives on this issue of Scientology and all the stuff that goes behind Scientology. Scientology does not exist in a bubble, even though Scientologists do exist in a bubble, the Scientology bubble. But Scientology does not exist in a bubble. Scientology exists because of a lot of other connected things out there. People's issues, people's pain, people's fear, all the emotional stuff that people have going on that can be exploited. A pattern of hierarchical control systems in the world is another thing that holds this matrix together. And so it's not enough to just stop Scientologists from recruiting people, although that is a core part of it. It's not enough to try to get people out of Scientology. But we also need to talk about clearing all the preconditions that make it possible for people to be vulnerable to this level of control, abuse, and manipulation. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. I really appreciate it. You have no idea how thrilling it is to be able to be up here talking about this stuff that I've only been a spectator until a month ago. And now I'm right in it, and it's fun as shit. So like, share, subscribe, jump up and down, scream Davey Mismanige to the world. I'm sure you're going to do all that. Bye-bye.